kick off then, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
I mean, I was writing down little bits and pieces about each of you, and it's safe to say that you are dotted all over the place, literally all over England, which is great. But because I'm a North Leeds estate agent, I very much am extremely biased, both in what I love, but also the information I have as well. I can imagine it's similar across the board, but I'm sure you can appreciate it's probably not the exact same. So when I'm talking about the property market and what we've experienced, more so what we've experienced, people will probably be able to say, actually, yeah, that's exactly what's happened. But more so what the market's doing now, it's changing quite a bit. And that will change in different areas, because I've had friends and family that are, well, more so friends, but family that have experienced, but friends that are estate agents in other areas that are reporting different things to what's happening in Leeds. So yeah, if anyone wants to stop me at any point in time, please feel free to do so. So what I'll go through today are the following here. So what's happened, what's the property market done over the last 2 years, namely after the first lockdown lifted? What's the property market doing now? What do we expect the property market to do in the future? How will buying and selling change now that the market's changed, obviously with mini budget announcement, which isn't so applicable after Jeremy Hunt's U-turn of most things to do. But then obviously we'll finish with questions. So how do I go full screen with this? I'm not a tech whiz.
I think if you
go across the
on the top.
That one?
Yeah, to view.
Well, yeah. Cheers.
Across, yeah. Okay.
So how do I move me? All right. Okay, fine.
That's just moved.
Right. Okay, so the market in the last 2 years. So as you guys will probably know, property prices rose by about 30%. Now it was nuts. It was pandemonium being an estate agent. I'm sure you guys, it was probably nuts for you as well, because when estate agents get busy, I imagine a lot of you guys get busy off the back of that, aside from all of your other business anyway. But yeah, so property prices rose about 30%. Tons and tons of buyers came into the market, absolutely obliterated first-time buyers' chances and opportunity to try and get onto the property ladder. A lot of people were actually waiting for the property market to come down, because if you remember, a lot of people said after the first lockdown lifted, the property market would probably go into a recession, and so would society as a result as well. So a lot of people waited and waited and waited, and it just kept going up and up and up. It was like that stock you miss, just on turbo. Home movers managed to upsize, because a lot of home movers made obviously a lot of money in that 30% increase. So we've now seen a lot of people around the mid-range, sort of 300 to 600, make that step up on the property ladder. The stamp duty cut was obviously then introduced shortly after, and that saw hundreds of thousands of transactions come through on a yearly basis. It was a massive seller's market, as you'll know as well. So sellers were just demanding all sorts of craziness, demanding crazy prices. Buyers were adhering to offering those prices and going over by a considerable amount of money as well. And then there's about 15,000 estate agents now in the UK as well as a result of that. So I thought that was a really interesting point. I think it went from about 12,000 up to 15,000 just after the first lockdown. There was obviously opportunity. What's the market currently doing now? So buying power has decreased. The mortgage rates have gone up. People are used to paying between 1% and 2%, not much over 2%, if at all. But now they can expect to pay sort of in between 5% and 6%. The standard is probably about 6.48. So it's just, you know, quite quickly as well, going higher and higher and higher. And again, I think a lot of people learnt from the property market And as a result of that, a lot of people are actually paying early repayment charges to fix themselves in now because they believe the mortgage interest rates are going to go higher. So it's actually really crazy to think that people that have always been really, really reluctant to pay early repayment charges are now actually calling their banks and their brokers to offer to pay them early just so they can fix themselves in to a rate that's already, sort of 4, 5, 6% higher than what they were paying. So it really is a crazy time and really interesting time to be involved in this. Very much slowly turning into a buyer's market. I mean, for the first time in 2 years, I would say, our agency has started to see people trying to offer under the asking price and actually get some success in it. It's not significantly under the asking price. We're not talking sort of 5% or certainly not 10%, but we're seeing, 1, 2% sort of typical of 2019 market and before. There are still buyers on the market. That's a really important point that I want to drive home. So there's a lot of scaremongering going on about the property market taking a tumble and a fall, property prices dropping anywhere between 10% and 30%. I read in one article, which is just nuts, but nonsense as well. There are plenty of buyers on the market. They've been looking for the last 2 years. There's not as much competition. People aren't willing to offer, 20, 30, 60, 70, 80, 100,000 pounds over the asking price anymore, which is what they've actually been doing over the last couple of years. They're willing to be much more realistic in terms of what they're offering, but they still want to buy. So these mortgage interest rates aren't actually deterring that many people. They're more so deterring the home movers, the people that are actually used to paying the 1 to 2%. And then obviously, speaking to mortgage advisors and banks and finding out that their interest rate's going to go up anywhere between sort of 400 and 1,000 pounds per month. So those are the ones that are getting slightly more scared than the people that have actually maybe not had a mortgage, like first time buyers, or the people that are already in rented accommodation and they've been looking to get out of rented accommodation. There's plenty of lenders on the market. So you probably all will have heard about all of the lenders pulling all of their rates and all of their products from the market, and thousands of lenders pulled even more products from the market, but they've come back now. They never left the market. They just sort of readjusted their rates to factor in the rise. And I don't know if you're thinking it, but I'm thinking, why is the Bank of England at 2.25% and all of these lenders are up at 5, 6, 6.5%? Greed, or some people might say that they're making up for lost time. Who knows? So the property market in the next year. Now, I just want to make clear, these are specifically my own opinions. This is what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what I'm listening to, what I'm actually experiencing in my own day to day. So I think interest rates will plateau next year, and I think they'll potentially start to come down slightly. I was speaking to a mortgage advisor that we work really closely with only this morning, who actually said some lenders, after Jeremy Hunt made the U-turn for those some of those tax changes, a couple of lenders actually put onto the market new products of mortgages, which were actually 0.5% cheaper than all of their competitors. So there's already, I'm not saying that's going to be a landslide and loads of lenders are going to come in like that, but it does mean that some lenders are starting to feel a bit more comfortable with maybe the stability now that we've got Jeremy Hunt as a chancellor. I do think it will be a buyer's market in the next year. Sellers won't be able to demand that buyers jump through hoops, etc., to make sure that they keep the sale there and they make sure they go through to completion. I think buyers will have a lot more power in terms of negotiating prices, calling the shots when it comes to a boiler not being serviced, for example, and then wanting the boiler serviced, because a lot of that was happening. Buyers were nervous about the things in the property after having a survey, but because it was just a crazy seller's market, sellers were saying, well, you either want it or you don't. It's tough. And a lot of buyers were being just pressured into, taking that risk with a boiler with no service record, or electrics with no electrical safety work done, or anything like that. So I think that will now start to change. What time am I on? Right. There'll be less properties coming to the market naturally. There will be people that have the need to move and a real deep want, But I think the people that are just maybe thinking, well, it'd be nice to move, but I don't really have a need for more or less space, or I don't have a need to change area because my commute for my work or the journey for my children's school is closer and it's doable still. So I think as a result of that, the amount of new instructions to the market will fall. There'll be more off-market opportunities available because the people that still want to move without the need, they'll be talking to estate agents about, you know, could you get me an off-market property? Could you find me a seller that wants to sell and move, but without it going onto the market? And if you do that, we will do the same. So we'll see a lot of that. So make good friends with estate agents that you know now if you want to move. It'll be tougher across the board, no doubt. It'll be tougher for most, if not everyone, but there will be different opportunity now. So before it was opportunity for vendors, it was opportunity for buyers to upsize, for first-time buyers to get onto the property ladder. It wasn't the smoothest, but there was still opportunity. Now the opportunity's changed. Opportunity will now be in terms of price. You know, like I said a bit earlier on, competition won't be as fierce. Investors will now get a look in without having to compete with home movers and first-time buyers. They'll more so be competing with just investors, which is a much smaller pool of buyers now. And then similarly, first-time buyers won't have as much competition from other first-time buyers. Certainly home movers, as I say, those are probably the pool of buyers that are most threatened by the mortgage interest rates. So yeah, different opportunity. Buy-to-lets will become a thing that I think might come back on the map despite the changes in law that are due to enter the market in 2025, 2026. And then obviously a crash. I know a lot of people are probably thinking, you know, are we going to go into a property crash? A lot of people are thinking we are. I personally don't think we'll crash. I think there'll just be a correction. And what I mean by a correction is I do think the prices will come down slightly, but they will only come down to a level where it's sort of a very, very softly type scenario where buyers are just offering under the asking price. I don't think we'll see a mass exodus of buyers leave and wait because the rental market's too hot and people need somewhere to live. I think as long as we've got a conservative government as well, as you'll probably know with Jeremy Hunt, one of the only things he didn't change was the stamp duty. Typical conservative government, always looking out for the property market. So I don't feel there'll be a crash. That's just my opinion. If there is one next week and it's really harsh and it's 30% property price crash, forgive me, I'll say that. Right, and then how will the market change? So at the moment, there's next to no opportunity for investors, or at least there wasn't sort of 3-4 weeks ago. This will change. There'll be much more opportunity. So if you've got cash that you want to invest, start to speak to a broker, start to build relationships with estate agents. It'll be a fantastic time in the grand scheme of the most recent past. A good time to start looking at potentially investing in property, either expanding a portfolio or starting a portfolio. Because I do believe over the next 7 years, property prices will just continue to go up. And that gap that we've already got, that's quite large, from a 2-bed flat to a 3-bed semi is just massive. So I just think the prices will still continue to just go up and up and up. So if in this next year to 18 months, property prices do plateau, slightly come down, it's obviously a good time to invest. I think higher interest rates will stay, but as I said, lower house prices, there'll be less competition. And I do think the interest rates will come down and probably normalize maybe at around 3.5–4% in the next 12 to 18 months, could be sooner. People will be fixing mortgages in for longer. I do believe that, but I really would say speak to a mortgage advisor or your lender first before anybody starts thinking about certainly paying off an ERC, an early repayment charge, because you've got tracker mortgages, you've got variable mortgages, and there's something which I won't go too into just because I'm not a qualified mortgage advisor, but there's something where if you stay with your current lender and you speak to them and you go on to what's called a variable, the risk goes up that your mortgage interest rate comes down by about 2.5%. But of course, it tracks the base rate of England. So if all of a sudden they have a massive spike, it goes up, but obviously still remains cheaper than, obviously what the current rates are on a fixed term now. And then, of course, if they go down, though, you're fixed in for a 2-year period on this tracker, and you're paying, still quite a high interest rate in compared to wanting to fix. And then that early repayment charge will be quite big. I'm expecting a couple of people to maybe ask me a couple of questions on that, because that was probably one of the biggest rambles of my life. The market will still move just at a different pace to the last 2 years. So it's just been absolutely manic, mad. There's been a lot of transactions, a lot of people needing to move through death and divorce, and the need for more space or less space. And I just think that will change now. It will just be a much slower market. People will be able to gather their thoughts a bit more before having to make such a quick decision for one of the biggest decisions you'll ever have in your lives. I hope that's been helpful. And if any of you have any questions, please feel free to fire away, and I'll do my best to answer them.
That has been
I've got a
very
question.
helpful. Thank you. Thanks, Julian.
I've
My
got
pleasure.
a question.
Yeah.
The process of buying houses is like 3 or 4 months now. Do you see it improving, or being just as long-winded?
The actual process, the conveyancing part.
Yeah, typically is it not 3-4 months now from offer to exchange and completion?
So about 46%. So 20% of properties fall through. About 46% of those fall throughs are due to bad conveyancers, or conveyancers not doing what they need to do or what the client wants them to do. So it's a huge number of people that are having their transactions fall through. Now, I believe that I was speaking to, funnily enough, I did a video on this with a mortgage advisor and actually a conveyancer, and they're both people that we partner with. So I'll refer a lot of our clients to this conveyancer. And this conveyancer was saying, it should take between 6 and 8 weeks to actually get it through from sale agreed to completion. And that'll be a very, very smooth ride. It's only because there's a lot of people that are struggling with the workload or a change in their processes that have made them work from home. And as a result, everything's slowed down a lot. So there's a lot of conveyancers out there now that are saying it takes between 12 and 16 weeks, which if you have a conveyancer or a property solicitor that's on the ball, 6 to 8 weeks is an extremely realistic timeline. So I don't think there'll be any slowdown in that regard.
Right. Okay. I just think it gives chance for the opportunity for people to either find somewhere else that they like better, or just change their mind.
Yeah.
Circumstances change so quickly, and can within more so in that time scale. So yeah, it is a bit of a problem, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. I'll stop sharing.
I've got a question actually as well, Julian, please. It's a little bit possibly linked to Susie's, and probably a question sort of for all of you wider as well. What have you seen happening to chains over the last 2 or 3 weeks? Because we've certainly seen here with some of our more expensive properties that are maybe at the top of a quite a long chain. The chains are collapsing. We believe probably due to so many mortgage products being withdrawn, and people somewhere in that chain had a mortgage offer that they now no longer have available. Is that quite widespread?
Weirdly, it's not for us, and I don't think it is for a lot of people now. But the challenge that I see coming over the next 3, certainly, but maximum 6 months, are exactly that. So the challenges that look like this. You get a mortgage interest rate and you apply for it. And as soon as you apply for it, you lock it in. And in 99.9% time out of the times, the mortgage lender will honor that rate. And they'll say, right, you've locked it in, get the valuation done. And that's what your mortgage for the next 2, 5 or 10 years will be. You've got two scenarios. Now, you've got people that need to change their mortgage product halfway through. When you change your mortgage product, the lender will sometimes look at it and say, right, we need to put you on a new rate. And that's mainly due to maybe a price renegotiation. If they need 10 grand off the price for a new roof, they're going to need to tell their mortgage lender about that, and that could change. The second one is if you've already got everything tied up, but the chain takes too long to complete, then your mortgage offer has an expiration date on it, and it's anywhere between 3 and 6 months. You can only extend it once. And if you've extended it once, then you can't extend it again. So if that chain takes too long and you can't complete before your mortgage expiration date, then you have to apply for a new mortgage at the new rate. So I think over the next 3 to 6 months, there'll be a lot of that. And I think there'll be a lot of fall throughs because of that.
Yeah, I think that's what we've seen a bit of already. And I think it's sort of linked to what Susie was asking about how long the conveyancing process is actually taking. And, you know, whether that's bad conveyancing or whatever it is, we've had that in a couple of situations with properties that we've staged, that chains are collapsing because of the length of time at various points in the chain. So thank you. Good answer. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't change in terms of the process in certainly in which an estate agent should work. So you guys, to stage a property is so important, because how an estate agent works, or how we work, I can only say that, which is fair. How we work is to make sure we can generate maximum interest in a property. So we can only achieve the best price or the quickest sale or whatever it is that's most important to the vendor by making sure we have a maximum pairs of eyeballs on their home. We show them around, sell the property and everything else. The only way to get them through that door is by that presentation being absolutely immaculate. Yeah. Once we've got them, when they walk in, it's all about the feeling. So what a lot of agents are doing is, because they're worried about the market, they're quite worried about the speed of which everything has to happen, but they're putting in half the effort. So a lot of agents don't value the staging of a house or an apartment. And we've always found, whenever we've managed to find clients that have agreed to letting us stage it, they've always sold quickly, but they've not had to risk getting a lower offer to sell quickly. Do you see what I mean? They've always captured both. So I think that's why a lot of estate agents fall down. They're too quick. They just, you know, they're hanging around with commission breath, and, you know, they don't really do the things that need to be done in order to get a good result, not just a quick result. So yeah, I will say that.
How very refreshing to hear an estate agent say that. We wish all agents were like you, Julian. Thank you.
I don't, otherwise I'd be out of business.
So it is 5 o'clock now. So if you do need to shoot off, then.
Thank you. Wow, I do get carried away. Well, yeah, thank you so much for having me on, everyone. It was really lovely to meet you all.
Thank you.
Lee, is there any way you could send me a list of everyone so I can connect with people, and if anyone ever has any questions or
yeah I will, absolutely. I'll do it straight after the meeting, no problem.
Excellent. All right, appreciate that. All right, ladies, well, good to see you all.
Thanks, Julian.
Thanks,
Julian.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.